Welcome, friends. Who's ready to blind taste this number tonight? It's quite a unique and interesting wine right out of the glass. There's a pronounced aroma. Before we get to that, who's with us this evening? I get myself set here. 3 folks are joining in. Hi, Susan. How are you tonight? Wow, that smells particular. Let me straighten that a little bit. It smells... There's something about the smell that I'm trying to pinpoint. We'll get there together. Trisha and Andy and Kathy are returning again this week. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And Jan is here with Bobby. Great. Eric and Wendy are here with us tonight. That's awesome. And Rob and Kathy. So we've got the crew getting back together, which is fantastic. I spent the day down in Charlottesville at Virginia Wine Works and tasted with Michael Shaps for a series of wines, which was pretty exciting, and got a chance to kind of work my way through some of his really beautiful Burgundy wines and a number of his Virginia production. And we're talking about kind of putting together a cross collaborated his winemaking, my selection series of wines for Field and Maine. So really cool wines. We've got Kelly with us, and Susan saying she's got a bunch of lemon. Todd, great to have you tonight. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully your lovely wife is behind you, behind your tag anyway. Carrie's with us, and yes, John, 100%. This is challenging. Tony said yesterday to me, "Good luck." And he didn't mean that in a positive fashion. I think he said this might be the most brutal wine he's given us yet. Okay, from there, we'll just have fun with it. But Susan, for sure, yeah, I agree. There's lemon. There's this smells, we carry a vermouth called Poli, P-O-L-I. This smells like vermouth. It has botanical qualities and herbal qualities, and yeah, pretty unique wine. Kristen, welcome back. We're glad to have you. It's okay if you miss a couple weeks, no problem, especially if you come back. It's all absolved if you come back. And that's a great thing. And Kathy Lang Wiedemann is with us this evening. Good evening to you. After she pulled Chinon out of the thin air, out of the ether, or she'll say out of the reality of our tasting here, and she called that. That was a confusing one for me last week. I did not see Chinon written all over that. And the unique part about it is I had done that very wine with the Kestenbaums, who are on this chat oftentimes. And I didn't recognize it much on this profile. So they kind of pulled that wine from a tasting. I pulled that wine, put that wine in a tasting with them, and then it was put in a tasting for us. And so I didn't recognize it. But John Edie are here. That's great. Spending date night. That's great. Is that just you and Edie, John, or is Molly with you too? And then Jan's with us tonight, which is awesome. And Candy's here tonight. Rachel, hey, how are you? Rachel surprised us the other night, coming in with her brother and her sister-in-law. Drove down from New York for basically a day and ventured into Field and Maine, which was awesome. And we got a chance to catch up a little bit and to pour some Chidane, some beautiful Chenin Blanc. Jan's picking up some citrus. So citrus is definitely a topical note and a note that we're all getting in this particular wine. Yeah, there's this lemon pledge citrus too. There's an intense sort of lemon pith, lemon oil aroma that's coming out of this wine. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, let's talk about this wine. We've got a good group here. Robert's picking up some lemon, pear, and honeysuckle. So before we go, or as we're gathering aromatics, and Kathy's throwing a few more out there like peach and flint, which is cool, flowers, almost a bit of muscat characteristic, and I think that's something we should continue to consider for sure. Candy's throwing in tangerine. Yeah, it's got wild citrus all over the map, citrus and some flowers, and I like that flinty element. We should be considering muscat for sure. We'll get into that in a minute. So what do you see by way of appearance? Is this wine pale? Is it intense? Is it a golden hue? Is it a lemony hue? What do you see? I'm going to try to give you guys a better indication. Pardon me as I try to navigate my own camera here. But it's, you know, pretty beautiful color. It's got some definite definite darker lemon quality to it. I wouldn't call it golden yet, but it has certainly a character that's darker than pale. Maybe it is a little bit golden. I mean, I was biased by the darker table here, but yeah, I think, you know, it's pulling in that direction. And well, yeah, Susan's finding the same thing. Robert's finding the same thing. Jan, you were getting a little fizz when you first poured. That might be a little bit of CO2 kind of trapped in suspension. I'm not seeing it still. Are you seeing it? I don't see it. They slosh it around a little bit. There's no bubbles to it. So I don't think it's particularly sparkling. It's still, it looks like from the legs right here, it has some forming legs. Maybe if I shade that for you, you might see it. They're there. They're present. Slow to form in certain spots, and then others they're sheeting right down. Let's see if I go like that. That's going to give you nothing. Sorry about that. So there's some present, and they're forming slowly and then moving down with relative speed. So we're talking about something that's probably moderate alcohol, but a richer color, and that's neat. One sheet for you, Robert. Yep. And it's kind of peeling down. After a moment, the tears form. Here's a good example. If I can show you that, you see? No, I don't think it's picking up on the screen there. If I shade it right there, I'm not sure that's going to give you any better indication. So this is a wine that I'd say, just by appearance, kind of thinking because it's a little bit darker color, maybe a warmer climate. Moderate alcohol based on its appearance and how it's coating the glass. So not telling us anything particular, right? It's not saying like this is super light or this is super rich, but it has something like that. Back to the aroma, Susan's noting some melon. We've got lemon, we've got tangerine, we've got some citrus notes, some flint, a whole bunch of floral elements. I get a little bit of herbal notes. Rose and perfume. So rose and kind of a perfumey element we should be considering. So muscat would be a grape that was thrown out there, maybe Gewürztraminer. So this is aromatic. This has an aromatic quality to it. Torrontés would be another aromatic white varietal. You might get aromatics, of course, from Viognier. So right off the bat, just because of aromatics, that's that Traminet from Virginia, throwing out a whole bunch of potential. Wow. Yep. Okay, so we got a lot, very expressive nose, and that's where you start to then think about a varietal that is aromatic in its profile, because it is so expressive. And a moderate body. So that doesn't really give us like a clear lane to kind of start heading down. I think we need to dive more into the wine and figure out if we can figure something out from the palate that might tip us off in one direction or another. A lot of the varietals we mentioned, or I just mentioned, might have some residual sugar to them. So, and that might tell us where they could be coming from. So let's taste this wine and see, is it dry? Is it off dry? Is it a medium weight? A lighter bodied wine, a more robust bodied wine, and what does that tell us as we go into it? Wow. What do you think? That's a neat wine. Still has tons of those aromatics. Retronasal, so the scent that comes through the back of your nose, nasal passages, so the retro back, nasal passages, nose area. To smell, just kind of lingering aroma that's in your mouth. Oh, this thing is prominent. That rose part is certainly here. It's a little tricky on the palate, isn't it? Is it dry? Is it fully dry? Is it a little bit off dry? It's a question I'm just not sure. Kathy's picking up a bunch of peach with a cross of kind of clementine. Yeah. And for me, it's still, even on the palate, like it was on the nose, it has this citrus oil quality to it. The peel is more of the sensation as opposed to sort of a zingy acidity that is the acidity from that citrus. So there's a flavor quality that's very intense. It's dry, right? Yep. Chris is saying the same thing. Susan's saying the same thing. And zero in on this for a second, because there's a textural quality here, and there might be a little bit of alcohol that's kind of driving some of that potential perception that makes you think it's a little bit off dry. But how does it finish? And on the finish, is there anywhere on your tongue, in your mouth, anywhere that you're sensing taste, sweet, sour, that you pick up on the sweetness, any sweetness? And I don't. It's pretty dry. But the acidity, which seemed a little bit light at the beginning, is still there. I'm salivating. So the acidity is kind of high, or maybe medium plus. And it lingers. It persists. Yeah, that acidity is coming on even stronger right now. So, which I know Kathy was saying that it was light, and someone else just before that said it was light, and then Susan's noting it's medium, but that's continuing to make her salivate. Yeah, there's a more persistent quality. Perfumey qualities from Chris. Yeah, I agree with you there, 100%. And Carrie's pointing out that it tastes a little bit like butterscotch candy at the finish. If I was an auctioneer, I'd be auctioning off acidity here. Do I hear light? Do I hear light, medium, light? And I'd be going up to medium plus, and I just sold Kathy on medium acidity. I think we could go medium plus. There is that sweetness in the front. That's kind of where I think maybe some of the alcohol of this wine is kind of hitting you, and at the finish is where you can determine that sweetness and see how that might be playing or messing with your palate a touch. And Kristen's noting certainly like what the sensation that I'm experiencing right now is if you let it roll off the back of your tongue and just let it linger for a moment, and then now hurry underneath the tongue, it's causing even a bunch more rush of acidity. And so, yeah, it's persistent. And that, for the varietals I threw out there right off the bat, unless there was something else blended with Viognier, you'd start to think, no, it's not Viognier, because Viognier typically has a lower acidity. That orange quality, that clementine, that kind of note that we're talking about would be something that would be a good signature of a grape called Muscat. And that's not to be confused with Muscadet, which comes from the Loire Valley, and that's a name for a wine, and the grape is actually Melon de Bourgogne, not the actual varietal. So we're talking about Muscat, and Muscat has sometimes this oily texture. It has a real aromatic orangey note to it. But this wine is showcasing some of that rose note, which potentially you could pick up in Muscat, but you'd get in Gewürztraminer, as Chris is pointing out right now too. So a dry Gewürztraminer, so where would you place this quickly? I mean, we can get there and we'll spend more time on it, but does this wine already read to you like an old world wine or like a new world wine? John's saying he's thinking this leads him to Muscat, or pretty close to it anyway, and Kathy's noting that Muscats are pretty perfumey and they smell like grapes, sort of, sometimes. Like a real grapey element. And that's I mean, this has, to me, at the very finish, a lingering flavor profile of sort of Welch's white grape juice. And everybody else is kind of chiming in thinking it's old world. Yeah, it seems to me to be a very old world wine. If this was a new world, say, Traminet or something of that sort that had these characteristics, I'd be pleasantly surprised and happy to know it. Chris is thinking maybe Austria, Hungary, Germany. I'd throw into that mix. I was thinking potentially Alsace, because you can get Muscat from Alsace, and you might get some of this weight there. But Spain also makes some very interesting Muscat, and then for sure Austria, Hungary, some really cool stuff that we've poured before from Hungary. That's Muscat. That really is basically Austria. They're kind of bordering one another where the vineyards are. Jan's got Austria and the flag to accompany it. That's awesome. And Robert, Old World. So we're all in sort of the Austrian, in the Old World camp, which is cool. Kathy's throwing out Müller-Thurgau. That's cool. That's a I've had that a handful of times too. And how would I peg Müller versus Muscat? This doesn't bring home Muscat to me, but it has characteristics that would be Muscat-like. It has a little bit of spice to it. And Northern Italy, Todd, I was headed there too. I like that potential call. So we're kind of Austria-Hungary, maybe Germany, perhaps Alsace, Northern Italy, Müller-Thurgau, which has grown kind of all throughout that particular area. It is, Jan. Jan's making the note that this is opening up texturally, isn't it? It's opening up more body now, yes. So it's moved from sort of medium body to medium, a little medium plus, slight variation there, just a richness that has kind of enveloped the overall profile of the wine. And yeah, this would be fantastic with cheese, Jen. I mean, white wines with texture and acid are tremendous wines to enjoy with cheese. Not to go down a big rabbit hole, but cheese is a lot of water and suspension with milk solids and milk fats, and so you're drinking with what most of the time when you're drinking a wine that is pretty tannic and red, you need something that has a lot more fat than most cheeses have. Even though cheese seems very fatty and creamy and rich, it definitely coats your palate and can work with red wines. But white wines just generally kind of go much better with cheeses that aren't super aged. So from the soft cheeses to the semi-soft, slightly aged cheeses, yes. And thank you for getting me back on track, Kathy. I was thinking about Kerner when Todd said Northern Italy. So Kerner is another varietal that gives a spice profile that I think you're getting on this. It definitely can have some of that citrusy note, more like the lemon, not as much the orange from my recollection. And I'm really basing that off of like 2 Kerners in my entire life, trying them. We carried one that I thought was beautiful and really unique and interesting. But it had like a mace profile to it. Allspice mace element that isn't here, and that might have been just particular to that wine. There is a quality to this though that's still coming back to me that's like the vermouth. It's a botanical aromatic wine, so in that regard, for myself, I am going to be like getting to a certain point and then making a guess, because I don't know enough about Müller-Thurgau and enough about Kerner to be able to nail these down. I can say that this references some of those points. This also references some of Austrian and Hungarian Muscat that I've tried. This references in some ways Muscat that I've had from Spain. This as references in body weight and texture partially Muscat that we might get from Alsace. And so for me, I'm in all those places without necessarily having a clear vision or clear sense of what this is. I do know it's interesting, and as we reveal it, it'll teach me something about a wine as opposed to me going, yeah, I recognize that. I mean, this is not an experience that I have had a number of times. So, and that goes back to Tony's point of good luck. All right, let's work this wine a little bit more. So we have all those aromatics, textural qualities going sort of, the body weight's going from medium plus, maybe the acidity sort of medium minus to medium plus acidity. It has ripe characteristics. Interesting. It's got both herbal elements, which usually would indicate kind of cool, and then it has that sort of really developed citrusy notes that go from lemon into that orange clementine kind of quality, which would reflect some kind of warmth. So maybe we're talking about a cool place with a warmer element to it or a warmer aspect to it. And then maybe it is the varietal itself that has those herbaceous kind of qualities to them. Think about, say, Cabernet Franc, which we tasted last week. And Cabernet Franc gives you some of that, although last week's didn't, more pyrazine note of a sort of green bell pepper that's part of the varietal, and also more reflects the varietal in given points, and in particular given climates. It can be more green or not. So this candy's coming back to being German. I mean, that's, I don't know that you could argue. I couldn't necessarily effectively argue against German, against Austrian. We had that tremendous Sylvaner from Germany, remember? And that had me fooled. Jeff Fox was right on that one at that time. He said it was definitely German. This doesn't read as German to me, but I might be missing the boat there. That's German vis-a-vis something like an Austrian-Hungarian element or sort of a Northern Italian kind of Muller or Kerner. I think I'm comfortable walking away from Alsace. I might be proven wrong, of course, on that. So, we're at the witching hour point. Usually we're 20, 22, 24 minutes in. We get a wine that changes its character. And yeah, we're seeing it kind of blossom out a little bit, but I think a lot of what was there initially is still there and is prominent. Tastes like a lemon drop to me now. Lemon heads, lemon candy. That butterscotch element is still kind of lingering on the back end of things. What about oak on this wine? Do you taste and smell oak? And oak found from the French oak side of things in the way of some cedar, some spice. Would you say this is an oaked wine? Or is this a wine that has a little maybe neutral oak for texture? Or is this a stainless steel wine? So when looking for oak, you're going to get it on the nose potentially. You're going to get it on the palate by weight potentially. And then you can kind of get it as you finish your taste and perceive the actual flavors of oak. And yeah, I'm not particularly picking up anything that's really overt oak. I don't sense a new signature of oak. Jan Burst is putting out neutral. Todd's throwing out also Chasselas from Switzerland. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Susan's noting a little touch of vanilla, which might be an indication of some more neutral oak, or some oak rather, and others are noting maybe more neutral oak. Kristen's noting more stainless perhaps, just more of a neutral vessel. Vermentino is what Chris is surely saying too, but a lot lighter than what he's had. Yeah, I think so. If there's a little oak on this, it's more neutral. It's a larger vessel, perhaps, or a very old vessel. It's meant to just kind of carry the wine as opposed to impart a particular character to the wine. I think it's mostly the varietal, and maybe we're talking stainless then, too. Okay, so for those of you like the McCartys and John are saying Northern Italy, are you guys going with something like Kerner or Müller-Thurgau that you're just gonna, or just a blanket kind of Northern Italy white? For those of you that are going Germany, what are you going to say in Germany? And for those that are elsewhere, what are you thinking? Where do you want to plant your flag? John, great. John Brooks has thrown out Muscat, 19 vintage Hungary. That's awesome. So this is a youthful wine. I think that's the case. I mean, I don't get any indication from this other than its kind of goldenish color, which I think is more probably the case of the varietal. And maybe some sunshine, but the varietal is a riper, thicker skin element. And it's youthful. So 19, absolutely, I think is probably appropriate. I think it's pretty spot on. Susan's going to put Müller-Thurgau in from Austria at 18. I like that call. Just, I think it's a cool call. Todd's going to say Gewürztraminer from Alto Adige. I like that call too. Frankly, there are elements here that certainly could be that. Carrie's going to throw out something she's not heard of and probably I can't pronounce, from Greece. And that's fine too. So this is one of those wines where we have kind of two different camps usually. The wine's either us collectively kind of being on something, or it's sending us further afield and making all of us kind of go in disparate directions. And that's the case with this particular wine. Kathy's going to throw Müller from Germany, 2016. And that'd be neat. A little bit of age, you're saying. Maybe that's where some of the development of the aromatics come in. So cool. For me, I don't know Müller enough, so it would be, like I said, I'm going to get to this point and then just make a leap. I can definitely go with the group. I don't get credit for any kind of addition or helping assistance in this way. And I would be fine with a guess of Gewürztraminer, and I would be fine with a guess of Muscat. But Gewürz, like from Alto Adige, I like that call very much. And I like the idea of a Muscat coming from sort of Burgenland, Hungary, kind of right over that border there, which would be neat. So I'm non-committal, and I need to be committal at least to proceed, right? So this is like close enough to have characteristics of Muscat, but I'm not sure it is Muscat. It has elements of Gewürz, but I'm lacking some of the spice element, and I get the rose quality, and I get some of the other elements, the aromatic quality. So I'm just out of like, I know those two better, and I don't think it's exactly those two things. I'll go with Müller, and yeah, let's go. Austrian Müller, kind of 2019, 2018. Kristen's saying Johnny thinks Austria 18 or 19. Kristen's saying Germany. Very dry Gewürz, perhaps from 19. Gebler Muscateller. Oh, Klaus, thanks, man. We got the Austrian wine expert coming in at the last minute here, giving us a potential opportunity there for sure. Gebler Muscateller. That could be, yeah. Limited experience again too with that particular varietal, so it's awesome to have that opportunity. If that's what we're drinking, that could be it. Klaus, do you have a Gebler Muscateller that's in screw cap with a gray top? I have not looked. This is how the screw cap came, of course, so it's not going to tip us off if it's Austrian. It would have the perfect stripe right there. That would tell us everything we needed to know about Austria, being the wine origin. But, all right, yeah, let's, just because Klaus threw it out there, why not? I'll venture to say Gebler Muscateller, 19 Austria. That is a giveaway guess, not really informed by previous experience or knowledge of the grape varietal specifically. So, okay, we've got some really good guesses. I think while we're disparate, we're in a region, we're in a zone with varietals that we've kind of identified. So whatever this comes out to be, I think we've done pretty well tackling this wine tonight. Huh. This is from the Nahe, so this is from Germany. This is 2015, and this is Rivaner, Rivaner. It is, per the back label, it is herbaceous with fragrances of apple and pear. Well, we've got more citrus than apple and pear, but so German. This is a neat wine. Rivaner, I don't know at all. But clearly, I think Rivaner then, if somebody wants to look up Rivaner is going to be a varietal that's going to have Gewürz, Traminer kind of characteristics. It's going to have all of the things that we kind of picked up on, a very aromatic quality. And it's 11.5. It is low alcohol. So it's just the grape varietal, perhaps. Is Rivaner Müller-Thurgau? I don't know. Yeah, it's another name for Muller. Great. Thank you, guys. I did not know that. Very cool to learn something new there. So we're in Müller-Thurgau in Germany, 2015. So it's a little bit more aged. Cool. Very cool. And definitely low alcohol. Yep. So it didn't mess us up all that bad. You guys did really great. Those of you that were in Germany and with Muller, awesome job. Those of you that were in Muller territory in Austria, I don't think that's far off. That's pretty amazing and excellent to be able to try something like that. So cheers to Tony for bringing something fun into the mix, a varietal that probably most of us wouldn't pick normally and certainly don't get occasion to try all the time. We're playing with a scallop dish right now with a bunch of winter citrus and Meyer lemon and some Meyer lemon peel and blood orange vinaigrette and some chicories, endive. So bitter greens that have a textural quality to it. That's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. So this would be a fun wine with that particular preparation. We'll bring that out. Klaus, you can bring us wine anytime you want, man. Your wines are wonderful. And I look forward to tasting with you again soon, as I do with all of you. And we'll do it again next week. We're going to continue on with sort of a full blind experience for a couple weeks. And then I just worked with Tony to pick out a couple of wines. We'll do a Riesling at some point in the future, and we'll know about it as the varietal. And we've just picked out, or he picked out a Cabernet. So we'll do a Cabernet Sauvignon too at some point to go back to sort of the varietal focus. And that'll be fantastic too. So thank you all very much for playing along tonight on this fun wine and for providing me with an educational experience to try a Müller-Thurgau from 15, so 6-year aged Muller from the Nahe. First time for everything. Cheers, everybody. I will see you next week.